Hey, what's up, Geekscapists? Welcome to a brand new Geekscape podcast. I'm Jonathan London. That would be your host. And if this is your first Geekscape, well, strap yourselves in. We're going to talk movies, video games, comic books, some TV. I think we're going to really cover the Geekscape pretty well in this episode. It's basically a news and reviews episode. We got E3 going on right now. There's brand new stuff to watch on Netflix. We got Loki back on TV, so the MCU is up and at it. There's a lot going on right now. And so we're going to be talking through it. Our good friend Josh Jackson from the Geekscape Games podcast is going to be here, and he's going to join Katie and I as we take you through really a lot of the E3 stuff going on, mainly the Nintendo Direct, because that is where my heart is. Some things came out of it that I was super excited about, and some stuff where I was like, Nintendo, wait a minute. We're going to get into all that here in a little bit. Also, went to see In the Heights. We'll be talking about In the Heights. And there's just a ton that we're going to be talking about today. So this is a pretty good news and reviews Geekscape for all of you. There's a lot going on. You may have heard that Geekscape is an award winner. That's right. Sorry about the lack of an episode last week. I know, I've been really bad about that stuff. Really bad. I do not intend for this show to become a twice monthly show. It is a weekly show. But last week, Heidi and I went to South Carolina. We went to her hometown of Greenville. And we attended the Reedy Reels Film Festival, which let the Geekscape produced Chasing Fletcher Allen in. And we came back with some gold. Geekscape is an award-winning production company. How does that sound? I'm sitting here on video on either YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook, and I'm fixing a tie that I don't really have. I'm like, hey, how's that? So Geekscape, pat yourselves on the back, Geekscapists. You helped put together a short film that is now the best short from the Reedy Reels Film Festival, a film festival that I thought of as like a regional film festival. And was like, oh, cool. You know, the main thing with this festival is to go to South Carolina, Heidi's hometown, and let's show the film to some of her friends and some of the people who helped invest in the movie. And I think it would be important for Heidi to show her family and friends just what she does. She's very, very good at it. And we're proud of the movie. So we went and showed it. And that's really all the expectations I had. What I didn't expect was for Reedy Reels to be a really fantastically run film festival. Usually with, like, I don't mean to bash film festivals. Sometimes you get into some of these regional film festivals and you're playing at like the rec center on like a classroom projector against like a cloth tarp up against a wall. Like sometimes like regional film festivals are not fun. Reedy Reels, on the other hand, had this brand new state-of-the-art children's theater that they were holding all the screenings at. The seats were awesome. The projector was awesome. Everything was awesome. And the non-film screening events were really good. From the catering to the socialization, networking, all the stuff that you want out of a film festival, they really handled it really well. So my hat's off to everybody at Reedy Reels. Thank you for hosting Heidi and I. Thank you so much for giving us the Best Short Award. That was incredible. There was a lot of great films. And so my reaction, I think somebody has on video, but when they called out that Chasing Fletcher Allen had won Best Short, which is something that I didn't even know we were up. I mean, I guess we were up for it. We were a short in the film festival, but there were so many great ones that when they called out our name, I just was like, what? We were pretty shocked and amazed and happy. So Geekscapists, that is your reward as well. That's your award, not a reward. You don't actually get anything out of it other than the fact that you helped bring it to fruition. But congrats, Geekscapists. We're an award-winning production company now in partnership with Heidi's production company, Dweeb Darlings, and Fonco Studios. Geekscape, baby. It starts with the baby, as Tyrese would say. Let's see. What else we got? Nothing. I actually have another short coming out this summer. I'm going to throw the Geekscape Productions on that, but that's a secret. You're the first people to hear about that. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's just kind of like start the show. There's, again, like I said in the lead-in, there's a lot going on, and let's get to it. Who better to help shepherd us through all the news and reviews than my co-pilot, the real host of the show, Katie Elsesser.
You're still pushing that, aren't you?
Well, you know what? Like, I honestly don't like not doing a weekly show. Geekscapists who know me, you know that like I wanted to have a show like this the entire time I was in like middle school and high school. It was like my goal. I went to undergrad for communications, immediately like took on 4 years of college radio and then public radio just to like be into this stuff. Broadcasting is what I wanted to do. That was my first love, and Geekscape's a part of that. I want to do the show weekly. I want to be able to do that. It's just the schedule is nuts. So I am now bestowing the show to Katie.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize there was your heir, your sole heir. You and Heidi need to have some kids. But also, yeah, man, if you have a week that you can't do, let me know and I'll try and figure something out. Maybe
Don't threaten the audience.
I will threaten.
Don't threaten them with a good time.
I am 6 foot tall. I will threaten.
Why should this show start being good now? All right, 15 years in, why would they want a real host?
Fair enough. Yeah, no, we want to keep our standards real low. Absolutely. No, I get it. Also, man, I think I've said this before in so many different ways, but also congratulations. That film is so fun and like it's so great, and it was cool to be a small part of it, and just like everything about it, like. Here's the thing that I love in storytelling is just like the heart that people put into it. And I feel like a lot of content sometimes just doesn't have the heart. So congrats to you. Congrats to Heidi.
Yeah. That, I'll say one thing about it is watching a lot of films, especially short films. Sometimes they lean all comedy. Sometimes they lean all drama. We had a very careful plate spin. We designed the movie to be a little bit of both. And those are difficult tone changes, but it's a challenge I definitely aimed myself at. I wanted to do that. And I think that is one of the reasons that they rewarded us was because it felt like...
Well-deserved, eh?
It just felt like a movie that covered a lot of bases and did a lot of things for a lot of different people in just like the 15, 16 minutes of its runtime. So yeah, that's cool. That to me, that's cool. That people laughed and gasped, and
that's pretty cool.
They got emotional. They actually got emotional, like in that short span of time, which was something that really was a goal of mine. And there were some great films. There were great films that you were laughing through. There were great films that you were, sad through or shocked by, and it was awesome. So there will be more Fletcher Allen film screenings. There just will, and like I said, there's another short coming soon.
Very excited about that.
Nobody knows about. Matt Kelly's seen it. That's about it.
Which, by the way, can I just say that I feel like Matt Kelly would be the person to hold a film festival in his house that he now has, his former sister's house.
You're not leaving the house.
That's what I'm saying. That it's also in that attic basement thing that he works out of. I'm just saying. I feel like. Let's flash forward a year in advance. We know Matt Kelly is going to be hosting.
Well, it's funny you say that.
Okay.
It's funny you say that because Matt and I are always talking about things that offer the Geekscapists on the YouTube channel, things to offer people on the Twitch, and how those things can be different. Because we're in love with Geekscape and we're in love with the audience and giving them cool content. While at the same time, like I just said with Jason Fletcher, flexing our muscles to try and create things in other mediums, film or TV or something like that. So Matt has this new house, and he, we don't want to spoil any surprises, but there's going to be a lot of content streaming on the different outlets of Geekscape.
Okay.
That you just have to keep your eyes open for. I mean, just here on the YouTube channel or the Twitch or the Facebook, we had a new reunion of Disneytos talking about Cruella. That just happened a little while ago on the same day. So there may come a time when y'all have 5 days or 7 days of continuous Geekscape content, and not just an hour at a time, just all day. You just kind of put Geekscape on in the background and hang out with your friends. Those friends would be you, Katie, and I. And we just hang out and we just kind of geek out. And there's shows for all sorts of different people. We're always trying to add shows. And I would love for you and Josh and Shane to do some streaming. I would just love to I don't know. I got an email from someone yesterday asking if they could work with Geekscape. And the thing is with working with Geekscape, yeah, sure, you can work with Geekscape. We're not going to give you anything to do. You come to us with what do you do?
What do you want to do?
What do you want to do here? Yeah. Do you have an idea for a podcast? Do you have an idea for a show? Do you have an idea for something fun? And then just come and see if that's something that we can fit into our into what we do, and we'll promote it because that's it. We've been running on enthusiasm this whole time anyway, and fun this whole time anyway. So come join us. That's I think Matt and I, we agree that this should be our UHF. If you know the movie,
Yes, yes.
This is UHF for us, and we're having fun.
I want someone, if anyone out there is like an artist or whatnot, I want to have some like "We Want You" poster, but it's London and it's like Geekscape. It's like we want your.
It should be Super Action Man. Let's be clear.
Oh, yes, we do.
We do have a patriot, a Star Spangled Super Soldier here at Geekscape, and that's Super Action Man. So, it should be Super Action Man being like, "We want you."
Is that the short? Are you not gonna? Okay.
No, the short is you're gonna be like, "What was that?" The short's fun. I've said too much. All right, so Katie, you're here. Let's bring Josh Jackson in. You can hear both Josh and Katie later this week, I think, on the Geekscape Games podcast. The Geekscape, E3 is going on this week, so we asked Josh to be a part of this. And he's going to be talking some video games. But if you really want the in-depth video game talk this week and all the ins and outs of what's going on at E3, you're going to want to subscribe to the Geekscape Games podcast, or at least check out this week's show. I listened to Derek talk to his buddy John on the Xbox Game Passengers episode that hit based on the Xbox presser that happened over the weekend. And that was awesome. I don't even have an Xbox. I don't have a Series 1. I don't have a Series S. I don't have any of it, but I was totally into it.
Time. It's been almost a year.
Your Xbox One?
I have my Xbox One, because it's been a long time, and I booted it up because of them. And I was like, all right, let's get some updates. Let's get that Game Pass back in action.
I gotta tell you, I thought that I was a PS5 guy, and obviously, like, finances not being a thing, like, I would love to be a PS5 guy, but when it comes to like software support, looking at what Xbox just did, I think I'm gonna buy an Xbox Series before I buy a PS5, because it seems like PS5, the PlayStation's a little late on the support on the software.
You're telling me.
It's kind of where I'm at on that. But
Derek was always ahead of the Game Pass curve, because I remember he used to talk about that years ago. And just like with Game Pass, it's like they don't have the most exclusive games exactly, but as long as you have that subscription, it's like you never have to spend go out and buy a game for like $60 like ever again.
Oh, it's insane.
Ridiculous.
It's absolutely insane. And let's be clear, I would just basically get it just to play. I'd probably be playing old ass games, or Sea of Thieves sounds like so much fun with your friends. Like, that would be a lot of fun. But let's get to video games here in a bit. Ultimately, there's a lot going on. The big stuff, we'll get to Nintendo video games here in a bit, but I gotta say, one of the most rewarding things that's happened over the last week is that Sweet Tooth, based on the comic book by Jeff Lemire, has hit Netflix. And I was so busy last week, I had not been able to watch it, but it did not stop you Geekscapists from messaging me and saying how much you've been enjoying Sweet Tooth, which you checked out only because Derek and I have been professing love for the comic in the last 2-3 weeks. I started finally watching this Sweet Tooth. Josh, you got to get on this train. It is so sweet. And someone online was comparing it to The Walking Dead meets Care Bears or something like that. But
yeah, like it's one of those where it's, with apocalyptic type shows, you just feel kind of gross and like you're like, there's no hope.
There's no hope. Yeah.
But then you're centered around a kid who's just filled with hope. And holy shit, does it work? It's like, it's that hope that you're like, please go back to the hope part, and they do, and it's a great comic.
Yeah. It's not to say that the show doesn't get dark. There's definitely parts where Heidi's turned away from the screen. There's definitely parts where things are looking pretty grim for Sweet Tooth and Friends. But that casting on that kid, and it is so much fun. And comparing it to the Jeff Lemire comics and the character designs, like, Jeff Lemire has a very distinct style, but they've really made this a little cuter. Bobby in the comics does not look like Bobby in the show. I love Bobby in the comics, and I love Bobby in the show for completely different reasons. Geekscape, you just have to watch it. Like, as we were saying to Josh, you just have to watch it, but expect a post-apocalyptic show that has animal mutant hybrids, human animal hybrids, a little kid with antlers, and it's a redemption story. It's a road trip. It is a story about like adventure and mankind's self-destruction and redemption and all this stuff. Chris Robinson is in the chat and he says it's fucking great, and I cannot agree more.
Agreed. And it's one of those shows that like you understand the terribleness of humanity and how awful we can potentially be, but there's also this other like heartfelt hope character that like still like it doesn't make it so dark that you're like, I can't watch another second of this, which is how I felt with Walking Dead. I felt like at a certain point I was like, humanity sucks so much and I don't want to be reminded of that.
Yeah, I think you're accurate on that. And Matt actually has a pretty good question in the chat. He says, so my first trade of Sweet Tooth still hasn't arrived. On a scale from 1 to 10, how required is reading the book before watching? And do I need to read the full run, or if I read the first trade, will that cover it? Well, Matt, I've got 1 episode left of the 8 that are on Netflix now, and I got to tell you, the things that are happening in the series are that you're expanding on some of the characters that are only briefly seen in the series. So in the comic series, it's very centered on Sweet Tooth. You do not get a lot of side stories that you would get in the TV show. You're seeing some things that are happening in the world around Sweet Tooth. So you're going to different locales. You're seeing those characters. You're seeing flashbacks to earlier times. The comics, like, it's very centered on Sweet Tooth and his journey. Here, that Sweet Tooth's journey with Shepard is very is very much the spine of the show, but the show gives you a lot of backstory to other characters, and they do it beautifully. And so it's not as centered on Sweet Tooth. Yeah,
like that was one of the things, because I love Will Forte. I've never seen him in this capacity, and it's so well done. And there was a point where I thought I wasn't going to see him ever again. And I was like, you know what? I've come to terms with it, whatever. But like, there's so much more in it that I was like, I don't know why he hasn't won an Emmy yet. Like, he's fantastic. And
I've always thought he was great.
Yeah. And he's wonderful in this role. There's so many characters in this show that are just, they're so beautifully brought to life.
Mm-hmm. And so, Matt, I would say that if you feel like watching the show, start the show up. It's not going to detract from your
I have not read the comic, so I will put that. I haven't read any of it.
Yeah. Matt, I think you can watch the show and then you can read the comic and know that the comic is a little bit more focused on Sweet Tooth and the Gus character, and that it probably narratively goes further than the show, because I have 1 episode left. I don't think there's just no way they're going to get narratively as far as the comic does. So fingers crossed for season 2, because they canceled Jupiter's Legacy. Jupiter's Legacy also had a lot of behind the scenes stuff that came to light. They had a showrunner change. They were over budget. There's a lot of stuff that going on with Jupiter's Legacy that sadly we aren't going to get any more Jupiter's Legacy. I enjoyed it. I feel like they righted the ship that was created when they had like some funky production issues. But yeah, Sweet Tooth is something that, man, it just makes me happy to watch this show. And as a celebration of a creator that I've loved for a very long time, there are a lot of Jeff Lemire shout outs. There is a Gideon Street. He has a show. He has a series called Gideon Falls. There is an Essex County. The first time I fell in love with Jeff Lemire and his artwork and his writing was on the big trade paperback graphic novel collection of the Essex County series that really got him his start back in Canada. Essex County is right up there with Blankets. If you want like the tear-jerker trade paperback piece of artwork that's like that thick, it's a super thick book. If you want that in the same way that if you read Blankets, you're like, wow, this really is a great representation of this graphic art form and how it can capture emotion. Blankets is one of them. Essex County is another one. But yeah. Cool. Jason Elliott dropped in to say, yo, always great to see you talking geek stuff. I barely know English, but I can speak geek. All right. So that was Sweet Tooth. We love Sweet Tooth. You've got to watch
also,
some Sweet Tooth.
Text me when you watch the last episode. I just want to know your thoughts.
I will. I got so wrapped up in talking about Sweet Tooth, I didn't even share a picture of Sweet Tooth on the stream. And just look at that kid. He is adorable. Sorry, podcast listeners.
But how old is he gonna be for second season? Because they shot either before or during the pandemic. So the kid's gonna be so much older once we come back to this story.
You know what? Just de-age him. They did it with Benjamin Button. Just de-age him. Just make
Great.
the kid younger.
Great. Just Mark Hamill him. Okay.
Just make him younger. Sweet Tooth's fantastic.
Mhm.
Okay, so the next thing we should talk about, Josh, is we went to see In the Heights. In the Heights is, I mean, first off, this is like the Lin-Manuel Miranda movie. It was delayed a year. If you're a fan of Hamilton, like he became a star off of Hamilton, but this was his first outing as a, this is his first play for the most part, his first musical.
Mhm.
And I went to see it on Sunday. I knew nothing about the musical.
Really?
A couple of my friends did. And I went because, La Raza. I went and I bought out a row because Latinx, baby. Like, I want Latino films to succeed. And we went to see it. And I got to ask, like, Josh, you're a Lin-Manuel, like, super fan. What did you think of In the Heights?
Yeah, I was in a similar spot as you. Like, I kind of was introduced to it after Hamilton, and I knew bits and pieces, but I was trying to stay as blind as I could going into it so I could be surprised. And I really liked it a lot. You can see a lot of a lot of his style and his fingerprints all over it from that made Hamilton kind of blow up.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way that each character has so much heart, and they managed to get such a deep, intricate story out of so many different characters, but being able to keep it all cohesive and all with some really great like music. The wordplay and the lyrics was fantastic, and the direction with some of the visual effects that they had in the movie just really helped it stand out even more and helped it go like kind of above and beyond. Because a thing about musical movies, like aside from Hamilton, I've always been kind of a big like musical person, and a lot of times I feel like movies, it's like growing up on Disney, and then it's kind of like the live action stuff's kind of the next step up. So like I've always really been into that stuff, but I've noticed like a lot of movie adaptations of musicals don't always fully take advantage of being on the big screen and having that budget and having that level of creativity. And I feel like they really took it far with this, especially the one song where they were dancing on the side of the building.
I was gonna ask. I was like, the one visual that comes to mind when you're talking about this, it's that dance on the side of the building.
And did you watch it, Katie?
Oh yes. Well,
absolutely.
It's so funny because Lenny was so sweet to offer me some of the tickets for that show, but I was at a birthday party, so I couldn't go to the actual theater. We were planning on watching it on HBO later that night, and like the Roku app like kept stopping in the middle of and it was driving us crazy.
Was it the blackout in the movie?
In the movie, yeah, and it was just completely black. No, but literally the screen would just go blank, and we're like, "What is happening right now?" And it would kind of get like glitchy, weird type of stuff. So he just streamed it from his phone, from the HBO app from his phone. So the Roku app might not be the.
And you like threw it to your TV, right? You didn't watch it on the phone. You streamed it to the TV.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Because scaring the hell out of me.
It was late at night, and I was like, I need to see this on some kind of screen. But absolutely loved it because I actually saw the show in some of the original days when it came out to LA, and I actually saw Lin-Manuel perform as Usnavi. And there were so many different things that it was like, oh, they put that moment here, or they put that moment here. But like the visuals, I agree, Josh, were so fantastic. They really took advantage of it actually being on film.
That was the highlight for me. Like, I don't mean to be the downer. I'm not a big musical person, and you'd think, like, knowing me, I just sing all the time and I have such a beautiful voice. I'm not a big musical person. I think that Hamilton's cool. I like Hamilton. I'm not. I don't. It kind of goes. Matt Kelly's mad at me right now, probably because he loves Hamilton, and I think you should love Hamilton. I think people should love In the Heights. The music's great. I think that. All
right, which one do you like better?
Ultimately, the directing is what sold this for me. Well, Hamilton, I've only seen on that Disney Plus thing where they're shooting the stage, and so like performance-wise, it's pretty awesome. But here, the visuals are just popping, and the movie keeps moving, and I loved that. Musically. I'm going to sound like a jerk and say that musically, okay, they're all singing until they're rapping and then they're singing again. I'm
All right,
cool.
well,
You won't catch
you
me
don't
listening
need
in
to
my
comment
car.
on that one. You don't
Yeah.
need to comment on that. But like at the same time, like no, I do get the visual. If you ever see this in the theater, this is a fantastic show to see in the theater because the guy
In the theater or the movie theater?
in the theater.
Okay, got it. Because
Okay.
I did see it in the theater. You stood me up.
I didn't mean it has a birthday party anyway. But like the kid who does the graffiti art, he's a whole character that you don't really talk to until like midway
Right.
/ past the second act break. But he's this beautiful dancer that like it opens with him like on a spotlight, and he like almost like spins and surrounds himself with like
Paint.
spray paint. But
Incredible.
it's not that, you know, like it's obviously a prop but whatever, but it's such a beautiful like the way they transitioned from the theater version of the visuals into the like the film version, I was like, I agree. The moment on the side of the building was one of those things that I was like, I couldn't stop thinking, how did they do that? Which like gimbal did they use? Like what setup did they do for
I
this?
think there was a lot of rotoscoping. I think they did a
Oh, yeah.
lot of crazy stuff. But I mean, those were my two favorite characters. Narratively, like story-wise, I don't think that the story was too strong. I thought that the story was fine and a great setup to have a lot of people singing and dancing, which is great. But I felt like it was a very long first act where you get a lot of people in their dreams and wishes, and then they get those dreams and wishes satisfied. And I was like, okay, cool.
But not in the way you expect. That's
Very much in the way that I expected.
okay. Well, you're also somebody who writes for film and writes these kinds of stories, so like that makes sense structurally. But like
I
at the
was
same
like,
time,
yeah.
like, but like I mean, so many people come home thinking that like they're one way and like they leave another. Like there's so many different things about this that I thought was beautifully done. And
Let's just be
especially
clear. With this
ahead.
casting of these two leading actresses,
Okay.
you're picking them. like no matter what those male characters do and what their hopes and dreams are, the second you see those two ladies on screen, you're like, oh, those other dreams, they got to go out the window because these ladies are, oh my goodness, like, wow.
But also insanely talented. Like their voices
Incredible.
and their dancing
Incredible.
skills.
The singing, the dancing, all that stuff that Jonathan wants to appreciate more, but is too much of a Cro-Magnon to actually do.
That checks out. That really does check out.
I want to, like, it is amazing. They're incredible. I can objectively say that they are incredible, and everything in this movie is. You should see this in the theater. Do not watch it on the phone like Katie did.
I didn't want to.
Don't yell at me.
All
I
right.
invited you.
I've been
Go ahead.
hearing more and more about how in the theater it's like such an experience. So I'm debating trying to go down and see it. But
You should.
I did want to add that I kind of, even though I did love it, I do kind of agree with Jonathan though, because there were parts where I feel like, and maybe it's different in the play because I know, and even though I haven't seen it, I know they rearranged some things were added just for
They
the movie,
deleted a
some things were
character.
cut out,
Mhm.
right? But some of the stuff, especially towards the end, it felt a little rushed to me, and that some of it was unearned, especially with like Usnavi's decision at the end.
Yeah.
Like, you know, where he's
We don't
like,
want to
he
spoil
literally
anything,
just-
but yeah.
right. Yeah. It's like, you know, the decision he makes at the end is just, I felt like it just came out of nowhere. And it was just kind of like, all right, it's already like almost 2.5 hours, which was another thing that you mentioned. The first act was kind of lengthy and I kind of want to watch it again when I have all the time in the world, but I watched it right when it premiered and I had to go to work super early the next day.
Oh no.
Like, yeah, and then like after the blackout scene, I was thinking that it was going to start wrapping up pretty soon, and I think there was like a whole other hour to it, and it got to the point where I was like, all right.
The blackout scene is where it's your act.
It's the intermission. And that's the intermission in the theater, yeah.
And
in the theater. We're going to make a distinguishing theater.
There's an amazing thing that like they did different in the film that I had to explain to Mark later, but like the reveal of the winner, I will just blandly say, happens in that moment. Like
it has a whole song.
They sing about it, and I was like, "Oh, they cut that part." Like, that song was still there, but like the one moment at the very end, which when I saw it in the theater, the whole room gasped, and I was like, "Oh, that was so cool!" Because I had heard the music before, but like, it's such a moment that I was like, "Oh, that's an interesting choice, at least for the film."
Well, ultimately, Geekscape is, I would say, watch this in a movie theater. We got to get you back to theaters. I hope y'all bought your Black Widow tickets. I know I did. And go, enjoy this. This is something that should be on a big screen, not on a phone, as Katie saw it. Which Star 2902 from Twitch says, watching a new film on the phone.
No, Star.
No,
I didn't watch it on the phone. We had to cast it because the Roku HBO app was breaking the whole time. Anyway,
Katie, you have disappointed Star. Star 2902. We're trying to convert them into Geekscapists by earning their trust in our opinion and our enthusiasm about geekdom, and you go and watch a brand new film on a phone? How dare you, ma'am? Times 3. Okay. Bolt T is like, hey, when Loki talk? Okay, we can do Loki talk. We can do Loki talk all you want. Y'all want to do Loki talk? You want to do some talk on some E3? I mean, I got to tell you, the only video game I've been playing, I'll tell you what video game I've been playing. This is how much of a gamer I am. All right? Let me just tell you straight up the video game I'm playing. This game, I bought this game to bring on the plane with me to South Carolina, and I got to tell you, Metopia. Hey, I gotta tell you, man, I made I am all about this Metopia. Is it a good game? No, it is basically one of the most. It is one of the most basic RPGs you could possibly be playing. You make a little me of yourself. You then make me's of your friends. I haven't made Josh and Katie yet, but I will. You create them as you get to them narratively. I made a Matt Kelly. He's on my team, and there's a little. You can assign classes to your friends that you make, and then you're on this really thin storyline to like free the kingdom and send people.
Say classes, like you are ranking.
No, like Jonathan is a warrior class, and then later in the game, I had to reset my class, so I made him a pop star class, so I can sing to hurt people, which is very accurate. I made Matt Kelly an imp. So he like runs around with flies around with a little pitchfork, which is very accurate to Matt Kelly. What else? My friend Jesse, who's a nutritionist and likes to cook. I made him a chef. He hits people with a frying pan. But there's also the classic D&D classes, like a thief and a paladin and a mage. You can do all those. But I did not pass up the chance for Jonathan to have a big fat microphone that he hits people with as a pop star, and he does like a pose whenever he sings. It's stupid. The game is ludicrously thin, but if you're on a plane ride across the country and you want to laugh a lot, it's enough for a simpleton like me. Again, like
when did you get this?
I picked it up like the day before I left to South Carolina. I'm probably halfway through the game. I don't know how long this game is. I just know that everything kind of feels like the same.
I'm shocked that there's a story in it.
It reminds me of just those Street Pass games that they would sell for like $3 on your 3DS.
Josh, it is very much like a Street Pass game that we used to have back on the 3DS days that I was also addicted to. Shout out to Flower Town. But this game was more expensive and is longer with not much more content on anything but a narrative sense. It is a very... very redundant in every sense. This is a solid 55% on a Metacritic, in my opinion. Let's give it the 55%. Matt says, I love Jonathan. He talks about he doesn't like musicals for being predictable and uninspired. And then he goes and plays Metopia cross country.
Thank you, Matt Kelly.
Yeah. Matt,
thank you.
Please, Matt, this has nothing to do with... listen, I wanted to spend time with my friends, so I made them little digital creatures that I can go into like little caverns with in Quest. Musicals on the other hand, all right, like I don't know, I can't really tell the difference between the songs that much.
Like,
I'm like, all right.
That something with a mindless plot is better than something with
a mindless plot and
singing,
singing,
cinematography.
Yeah, I'm going to answer that. No, I think that the musical is better, but I think that I enjoy both of them the least.
Okay.
That's
one way to say it. Sure.
Yeah. Star says, thoughts on the Elden Ring announcement? We're going to have to throw that one to the Geekscape Games crew because all I cared about was that Nintendo Direct. Because I was salivating for some Breath of the Wild 2. Y'all want to talk E3? Y'all want to talk about Loki? Shall we save Loki to the end of the show? We can do this however y'all want to do it. Y'all are
Save
the
Loki.
experts.
Let's do some
Let's
E3.
save Loki to the end of the show.
Josh,
just
what
to
do you think
make
about
sure
Elden
that
Ring?
we-
I'm terrible, but I didn't watch the trailer yet. I was at work when it went on, and I haven't got around to it. But I've kind of read more about it, and I mean, it looks like there's a lot to be excited about. It's just, I don't know. I'm getting to the point where I'm kind of, I don't want to say cynical. Maybe that's probably the right word, cynical, because there's so many things that just get announced and then they sit on the back burner for years, and then they come out and then they're like disappointing. So if it's a cinematic trailer,
Or
and
they're
there's not a whole,
they're a rehashing of like another game, and it's just like, all right, yeah, I know, I played that.
yeah, like for Metopia, for example.
Yeah, no, guys, I'm not proud. I'm not proud. I literally
y'all had it Animal Crossing days, like we get it, you know.
the greatest thing about Metopia is I slept on the plane. Like it absolutely is so thin that I
just
fell
tell you,
asleep playing it, and I am happy for it.
if you want like a really good game to fall asleep to, Endless Ocean is kind of the game for you. I think they ported it to Switch at one point, but like the soundtrack on that, I literally would fall asleep in the menu because it was so soothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I was just gonna say the title screen music was something else.
Yeah,
It was like something you could just throw on in the background and just leave it
No.
on overnight.
No, I'm gonna get you guys the title screen music on this little fucker. Okay,
I'm
hold on.
wondering. I'm
Hold
very
on.
curious if it's
Let-
like
let
the
me-
same composer somehow.
Okay, hold on. Let me save my game.
Yeah, you
And
save your game.
hold on.
Jonathan.
I'm gonna save
wanna
and quit.
know
I
more
want you.
about what Josh wants. to
Hold
talk
on.
about.
I want to play y'all the psychotic start music on
Oh my gosh, we're gonna have
Metopia.
another
Ready?
Matt Kelly and a
We're doing
his
this.
band, aren't we?
Listen to these little fuckers.
You fall
Hey, it
asleep.
sounds like In the
with it?
Heights.
Listen to those little bastards.
It does not.
There's like there's like these little streaming. There's like these little faces that are like hopping up and down in the eyes,
That's
and
not something
I
that,
think
like,
I think they're
blows me
very
the
they're
fruit,
very
though.
funny. Whee! These little bastards are singing. I think
Honestly,
it's
this feels like a Toad game for some reason.
yeah, it's not as good as a Toad game. No. The Toad. Yeah, listen, like
That's some backwards shit there.
no. Toad Treasure Tracker is a gem. That is a great game. This is not a great game. This is a very thin game that Jonathan was like, playing this game. I wanted to play Ni no Kuni again because I was like, now there's a role playing game I can get behind. Star says it sounds like the Splatoon's singing. It's very much like the Splatoon singing. Matt says again, Hamilton, whatever. Hamilton's fine. They sing and then they rap and then they sing again. It's cool, and you learn history.
I don't even have a Broadway friend to like stand on. It's just,
Now
Josh,
listen,
what
what's
is
wrong with
exciting?
where's the Metopia's musical? That's what I'm looking for. I want little bastards
Hey,
to go on the stage and go.
Splatoon actually did a concert, like a hologram concert, like Tupac, but
yes,
with the squids.
they did. That's right. That's
So
right.
naturally, Metopia is just the next step up.
Yeah.
Josh, I want to go on record, okay? Because Matt's coming at me in the chat. It's a step down. I fully acknowledge that this is not good, okay? But we don't all have to be, the pinnacles of cultural appreciation. I'm literally getting trash from somebody in the chat who is the procure. What was your nickname, Matt? It's like the procure of all that is shit. Like you, Matt. This guy has like.
Just the film festival guy. Just call him the film festival guy.
No, Matt literally has the worst films ever put to celluloid on his DVD shelf. It is brand new plays. He is known as the proprietor of all that is shit, and he's giving me some flack. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Okay, so continued. Let's talk some E3. Can we?
Ironically, if you're going to talk about bad movies, one of the biggest announcements for me, at least, was that they announced a Plumbers Don't Wear Ties port. Are you aware of that game, John?
No.
No, but Matt Kelly just pointed out that the Carnosaur box set is next to Casablanca in his house. Yeah, I know, buddy. I know, and I love you so much. So what is the Plumbers Don't Wear? What?
It's some really, really terrible like 3DO era game that it was like back when every game was trying to have like live action actors with that really like crappy FMV stuff.
I miss the SMB games. I went back and somebody had written a like 15-year retrospective on Jedi Knight, which was Dark Forces 2. And man, that's all we had. Back in the day when you're watching Jedi Knight, Dark Forces 2, and you're watching those like live action cutscenes, that was our Disney Plus, okay? That was our Mandalorian. Try finding that stuff on YouTube and not throwing your computer across the room. Those things are terrible.
Well, see, the thing about this one is even in that era, though, it's mostly a slideshow with dialogue over it. Like, it's too hard to explain. I know Shane was really excited about it. I'm sure he'll talk a lot about it on the Geekscape Games show, but it's just known as one of the... Yeah, so it's kind of has this reputation of being one of the worst games of all time, but it's also really expensive because no one had the system it was on, and they printed like 5 copies.
Oh.
3DO I wanted it because I was a huge Wing Commander fan, and they had the console port of Wing Commander. But then I remembered I actually just have Wing Commander on my PC. I'm good. Another series that on the 3rd and 4th, installments went to live action when they put Mark Hamill and other actors in that series. And again, I watch those cutscenes on YouTube, and they make me hurt for 14, 15, 16-year-old Jonathan and the standards that he had. Much higher now. Do y'all want to hear the Metopia song again?
Nope.
Anyway.
This freaking guy.
So y'all are going to go be on Geekscape Games. You're going to talk the full breadth of what is going on at E3.
The breadth of the wild things
Can
that are going on.
I wasn't going to do that because I think it's hacky. Do you want to hear the Metopia song again? Anyway, can we talk about this Nintendo Direct, because it's really where I focused all of my attention on E3. I just needed some Breath of the Wild 2 in my day, and can I just say that I love Nintendo. They're one of my first loves, but this Breath of the Wild stuff. We're getting Breath of the Wild 2 next year, not holiday.
Finally.
Next year.
I was going to be so mad if they didn't mention anything about this, because last time, I remember we even talked about this last time. You were very excited about Hyrule Warriors. They started talking about a DLC with Hyrule Warriors, and I was like...
They already announced a month and a half ago or 2 months ago.
Exactly, which I was like, why are we doing that?
Especially when they said that was... especially because they were like, this is the last thing we're going to talk about today, or the last reveal. I'm like, how is that the last reveal? We've known about this thing for like a year.
I mean, look, we've all been pissed about it. I mean, those of us with the...
And I liked the game, and I'm pissed about it.
No, you did. And you still kept trying to get me to own that game. I still haven't bought it. I still haven't played it. And I'm like, all I want is this
Katie,
here.
If you don't like the Dynasty Warrior games, if you don't like those Dynasty Warrior smash 'em up games, don't buy Age of Calamity. You won't enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I know.
I like those games. To me, they're kind of like the new versions of... Remember when the PlayStation 2 had the Lord of the Rings games, and you could just smash up a little bit 2D side scrolling, and you just could pick your character and smash your way through the levels. This feels like that, and that's what those Dynasty Warrior games feel like, and Age of Calamity feels like that. Age of Calamity supposedly is in canon with Breath of the Wild 2, which if you play the game, it does have some time jumping shenanigans, and does create a splinter of the timeline in the same way that Ocarina of Time did. Right. That being said, do I think that's a problem? No, these things happen. And watching the gameplay trailer for Breath of the Wild 2, I gotta say, the time shenanigans are not over. I think that this game, this trailer left a lot of clues. People online have already started playing the music backwards, realizing that there's multiple Zelda themes in the theme when played backwards, which is just nerddom to a psychotic level, if that's what you're doing.
Just look at this shot that we have on the screen here. This is straight up Skyward Sword, diving type of stuff. This is some of the stuff that we've already had rebranded and ported over into the Switch, which is great. I'm so excited, yay! But also, there's so many different shout outs, at least in the very few moments of the trailer alone, from games. And one of the notes that I wrote down, because yes, I did write notes when I watched the
as you should.
But I was like, why aren't we just porting the whole N64 library over into the Switch? It's all that we're trying to do.
Yeah, I'm okay with this game having Breath of the Wild, or not Breath of the Wild, sorry, Skyward Sword, shout outs, as long as it is not Skyward Sword. As Star2902 says in Twitch, I'm hoping the second Breath of the Wild game is also free roam. It has to be free roam, because that is a Breath of the Wild game. It's gonna be free roam. That being said, that is the biggest problem with Skyward Sword, was that it was the least free roam of any Zelda game. It was a fetch quest that pointed you. I mean, you just went from point A to B to C.
It was on the rails the entire time.
Painful.
It was like you couldn't, like, if you went to another section, it was like, okay, sure, I guess, but like you're literally above the clouds, able to drop in at any point in any section, technically speaking, but
they'd be empty.
They'd be empty. You couldn't do anything. Like you couldn't, like, that was what was so great about Breath of the Wild, and the fact that, like, you know, you could climb wherever, you could go wherever. Like, it was just like I spent hours on that game, and I wasn't in the same spot anytime.
I think at this point you can now fly wherever is what we're seeing. We're seeing parts of Hyrule being lifted out of the ground and being floating islands. We're seeing similar parts to the map that we saw from Breath of the Wild. I think that this is just going to be Breath of the Wild with a vertical, like, aspect to it, which is fucking cool.
To the enemies, like, we've got the, I can never say this, I only read it in my mind, and it's not the same way. The Bobblecans?
The Boblins.
Boblins. I don't know.
And
I
now
don't pronounce things right
they're
ever.
on top of like an onyx.
Or a stone. Yeah. I love that. Like, it's almost like we're kind of like zombieifying some of these enemies, which is great.
And Link also gets the Guardian armor that was hinted at in the production artwork for Breath of the Wild. So he finally has the Guardian armor that he can put on his arm. It looks like he can use a flamethrower. I'm in. Like, I don't care. Just put Breath of the Wild on it, and I'm in. I don't care. I clearly played Age of Calamity. I'm a sucker for this stuff.
And it's like, I feel like back when we're talking about Skyward Sword, I feel like in a way this is a good way to kind of redeem the concepts of it, because that game was so divisive, and, you know, it's such
Who's
a
on the other side of it?
A lot of people are just saying, like, oh, this was just like a shoehorned way to have some kind of an origin story. Like, a lot of people were not super into the way that
people defend the game. My only defense of the game is that I like the story, and it has one of my favorite Zelda dungeons, but it is the last dungeon, and it's one of my favorite Zelda dungeons, and that's my only defense of Skyward Sword.
Here's the thing. I thought it was a beautiful game. I thought it was great. It was unique. We were actually using voiceover actors. There's so many things about that game that are beautiful and awesome. Where it fits in the timeline, I'm like, okay, sure, why not? You know, like it was a fun game. I thought the final battle was a little bit too easy for my taste. Like, I forget what potions I got, but I apparently, like, completely overpowered myself, and I was done in like 2 minutes. And I was like, oh, I'm usually, like, I'm struggling. I'm not a gamer that does things easily. Like, the fact that it was easy for me was like, oh, that felt cheap. So I respect Skyward Sword for what it was. I have the book. I have Hyrule Historia because of it. But apart from that, like, Breath of the Wild was the one that was like, oh, now I'm back in.
And Josh, what were you going to add? I'm sorry, we keep cutting you off.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, like, in a way, I feel like it's kind of revisiting those concepts, but hopefully in a way that's more universally praised and applying it to that open, and like the freedom and the open world that Breath of the Wild allowed. So, I mean, it's exciting. I'm looking forward to it. The little bit of footage they showed looked excellent. So, again, it's further out, so it's hard for me to be super excited, because they showed like 30 seconds of gameplay in it. So it's like there's not a whole lot to dig into exactly, unless you want to listen to the music backwards, apparently.
Yeah, fans are listening to the music backwards and finding all these Zelda themes in the music backwards, but also the rewind time stuff looks like it's an aspect to the fighting and the traversing of this world, is being able to rewind or to pass through things that there's a sequence where there's like a drop that gets rewound back into wherever it dripped from, and Link now has that ability to travel through things. So that's cool. Speaking of what's not feeling like free roam, my biggest disappointment, but please defend this, people, because
I will.
you have to convince me on
I'm
this
ready.
one. I'm still going to play the damn thing, because I can't not play the damn thing, because what we're talking about is a Metroid game, and that's the announcement of the 2D Metroid Dread. That was like really the biggest announcement today, is that we're going to get a new Metroid game. But all these Prime fanboys, of which I'm one of the Prime fanboys, I wanted an open world Metroid Prime type game where Samus is exploring multiple parts of a galaxy, from an asteroid belt to a planet. I wanted to see that kind of aspect taken in a Metroid fashion. Instead, we're getting another 2D game, which just felt like what the 3DS was for.
Here's the thing, though. When it comes to 2D games, considering Ori and the Blind Forest, considering all the different even Super Meat Boy, like even in like the earlier ages of this like 2D, and just platformers in general, the art and the design has been completely upgraded from where they used to be. And like, yeah, 2D, it's platformer, it's a different style. I asked me like 3 years ago, I never would have touched any of this stuff. But like the art and everything has just advanced so well that like I feel like, especially because Metroid like started as this is totally the perfect way to present Metroid. I'm very excited for this.
If it's 1987, no, I'm kidding.
No.
I mean, have you played Ori and the Blind Forest? Let me
Yes, I love to. I do love 2D platformers. I really do.
Yeah.
But the criticism of Metroidvania type stories are that they are linear in nature. That you just keep going until you get the item, and then the item opens up another part of the map, and then you backtrack to that part of the map, and you get a little bit further, and you get another item that opens up a different part of the map. I'm not saying that that's what Metroid Dread is specifically. But when the criticism of a Metroidvania type game, your name is actually in the criticism that it is a Metroidvania type game, it's time to expand things. And I'm a big fan of the. I thought that the Switch, and maybe it still will be, because this game comes out in October, and we may still get another big Metroid title before there's a console change on Nintendo's part. Yeah. But I thought that we were going to get a 3D title, Metroid title on the Switch announced today, and instead we get a 2D one, and I just didn't feel like the full maximizing of the console when I saw this news.
Right. Well, to me, it's like 2D platforms especially, and I think a lot of games recently, you mentioned Ori, like Shovel Knight, and even all the people who will find a million different reasons and ways to redo and remake and revisit Mario. It's like those games in particular, that genre, for whatever reason, feels like it's such a timeless one that ages so much better than so many other genres. Because with 3D, and Metroid Prime is like one of the best games ever made, so that's obviously an exception to the rule. But a lot of times you play a 3D game that was like the best thing ever from 2001, you go back and play it now, and it doesn't hold up. And the thing about 2D Metroid in particular is that it's always kind of been the standard bearer for its genre, and it's always been, I mean, of course, like you mentioned, John, the genre has been kind of changed to like Metroidvania because Castlevania kind of one-upped it in a lot of ways, but generally speaking, that whole genre was created off of the backs of what Metroid made, and people have been waiting on a game like this for a really long time. I think they mentioned that it's been 19 years since Metroid Fusion came out, which is the last time we got a 2D game. Mm-hmm. They had a couple of remakes in between, but this is the first like brand new one. And this game was actually canceled twice. Like it was supposed to come out on a variety of different platforms before. And so people have been waiting for it for so long that I think people forgot about it. So I think a lot of the enthusiasm is coming from the fact that the standard bearer of the genre is not only returning, but it's the same concepts that we've heard about off and on for, God, it's got to be like at least 10-ish years, because I think it was originally supposed to come out on the DS. Wow. And then it kind of disappeared and then shuffled to the 3DS. And then instead we got stuff like Federation Force and So, and the thing too is that like with Metroid Prime 4, that's being made by like a completely different team. So, and I think it was 2 years ago that they announced that they completely scrapped development and were starting all over because they didn't like how it was going. There was something like that. So at the very least, I'm happy to know that, you know, it's two completely different teams. So this one's not taking away time from Prime. And I'm happy that we're getting something in between, especially since it's not only returning to that style that a lot of people have been waiting for so long, but also that it's adding a lot of the new mechanics that they added to the 3DS remake of Part 2, that with the melee attacks and that kind of stuff. So it's also not just a straightforward like recreation of a Super Nintendo game or whatever. It's adding new things to it that'll hopefully keep it fresh. So I'm excited for it.
In its defense, they do these 2Ds platformers fantastically. I also like narratively what I've seen in the trailer and kind of what the concept was, that Samus has to go into hiding and is actually being hunted for a lot of this game by this brand new character that's completely robotic, and Samus's attacks don't work on it. So Samus has to like go stealth and this and that or outsmart it. And I think that's a pretty cool aspect to the gameplay. I know I'm gonna jump when that shit goes down and you start getting chased and stuff. I'm gonna be like, oh shit. It's gonna be a lot of fun to play this game.
What was
Speaking of, did you see how,
about that?
Okay. I was just gonna say, did you see how the amiibo, like the amiibo wars of like 2014 started up again because of this? I'm gonna buy the
Skyward Sword amiibo.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get these amiibos.
Well, dude, the Metroid amiibo completely sold out today. Like all the bots scooped them up.
It'll be back. It'll be back as soon as the PS5 starts hitting. I'll be there waiting for it.
Stores.
Well, what's funny
stock.
is Xbox Series are starting to pop up again here in the States. I'm starting to get notifications that like GameStop supposedly is going to get some new Xbox Series consoles tomorrow. So Metroid Dread, I'm definitely going to get it. Don't be stupid, Jonathan. You're going to get this game. But as Josh says, like my heart really is waiting for that Metroid Prime 4, and I'm hoping that that's a free roam game. I'm hoping that you're getting to explore more. I will go on record right now as saying I do like the Metroidvania games. My favorite, and this is a big announcement for me, I don't think it's going to be a surprise when you hear it. I like the Ori and the Blind Forest. I like all those things. My favorite Metroidvania game that is neither a Metroid or a Castlevania game is Guacamelee. I loved Guacamelee. So I don't know if anybody really remembers that game too much. Josh, I know you do.
Yeah.
But Guacamelee was hilarious and fun and had a really distinct, cool art style to it. So that is my favorite of the Metroidvania games. It had a sequel too. Okay, so let's talk Loki. We got to talk this. And so I'm going to throw up a little bit of a spoiler warning for Loki episode 1. You really should have watched this, though, Geekscape. It is a week out of having watched that first episode. So let's talk Loki briefly. Geekscapists, you're definitely going to get Ian Kerner and I in a few weeks talking the full Loki enchilada. Bolt T says, I want predictions and spoilers. Are there other heroes and villains popping up in this series? Loki has to defeat the other TVA, otherwise he dies. What's the twist? What's going on here with this Loki series? I will tell you right now, the Loki series to me was best described when I read somebody say that Loki was like if Douglas Adams made a Marvel MCU iteration. Douglas Adams, of course, of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm sorry, my bad. My bad, Jonathan. Yeah, mile wide and an inch deep on the geek stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of Douglas Adams style jam on this Loki episode 1. I loved it. I thought it was fun. But shit, who knows where this is going?
I love just like the design of this whole thing. I love all the different things. Like it feels like, all right, I'm not gonna be as like, oh, this is Mephisto or whatever, and I'm not gonna be as like, oh, this has to mean this has to mean that, as I was with WandaVision. But like, it's still, we are setting up quite a bit in terms of like Loki challenging the TVA and like what is this ultimate timeline. Obviously, we're gonna get the multiverse of madness very soon after this. And he is railing against this whole like system, and the fact that Owen Wilson is this like detective, in a way, a detective of time. There's so much about this that I'm like, oh, we're setting up so many cool things. But I'm not gonna go the Mephisto route, because it's also, I don't know if you guys heard this, but like, you know, that little window pane where like it was like a devil-like creature. People were like, oh my god, that's Mephisto. They're talking about Mephisto. Yeah. And like the creator was like, no, we didn't mean it to be like that's ousted. That has been denied officially. That is not Mephisto. But like, we might see a female Loki. Like, I mean, there's.
I'd love to see the female Loki, a kid Loki, all the different iterations of the God of Mischief. And just to say, Michael Waldron, who's the showrunner on Loki, he did write the script for Doctor Strange 2, Multitudes of Multiverse of Madness, and all that stuff. Like, this is going to be very seamless in moving into Doctor Strange 2, and you're going to see the WandaVision go into Doctor Strange 2. You're going to see the Doctor Strange 2 go into Spider-Man, Far From No Way Home or whatever. I think the third one is called No Way Home, and I think the rumor is that that's in reference to the villains that are popping up from the multiverse and getting them back home. But in the comics, there's a long history of a female Loki. There's been a kid Loki for a long time.
And on his document, it says that his sexuality or his sex is fluid.
I'm in for all of this, and I think as much craziness as was going on, because yes, there was a lot of like really cool retro artwork and everything was pretty retro and cool, but then you also had like sort of that view of the window, had that Buck Rogers sort of spacescape going on. That was awesome. I think the thing that I loved most about this was that this was this is the Loki in the immediate aftermath of that first Joss Whedon Avengers movie. He is still very much a villain. He's very much a mischief maker, and we had to catch him up in a way to the Loki that we had as almost a hero type in Thor Ragnarok. The redemption had to come very quickly, and to spoil episode 1, the fact I just kept waiting for Loki as the TVA is showing him all the acts that he had done and how irredeemable he is and untrustworthy he is. They're showing him a little bit of like, Loki, this is your life. I was waiting for Loki to get access to the footage of his death and how that would make him feel small and meaningless, and that all these the plans of mice and men and gods didn't mean anything. And then when he sees that the Infinity Stones are paperweights to the TVA.
First of all, big shout out to Eugene Cordero. He is a fantastic comedian, big in the improv community. I love that he was in this. One of the things that you can notice throughout, he's got a pen in his pocket that just continues to bleed and have this like bigger like ink stain as he goes along. He has no idea what a fish is.
It was awesome.
Yeah,
they have a cat, but they don't know what a fish is. Okay, all right, I'll give it to you.
But is it a cat or is it a flurkin?
Could be a flurkin. It could be a flurkin. I think that as much crazy and zaniness as was going on, shout out to Michael Waldron and the team for making, to me, what the highlight of this episode was that pathos that Loki went through very quickly, very economically, in saying, wow, my feet have just been both literally and internally like swept out from under me, and I have to reassess my entire existence, and now let's go up on an adventure. I think the character work in this was really great, and they did it it was, again, economic and awesome. I was totally into it.
And it's funny when you see Loki go through, like, he's got those checks and things, like, he gets like ripped of his clothes or whatever. And at one point he's been asked whether or not you're a robot. And he has a moment that's kind of human, especially for that version of Loki, like where he's like, what if I didn't know I was a robot this whole time? What would happen? Like, would I die if I didn't know that I was like, that kind of humanity is something that we hadn't seen, at least from that version of Loki, that I found a very fascinating choice for them.
Yeah, this is a good one. Josh, did you watch it? Do you have thoughts on this, or did we just spoil the shit out of an episode you have yet to watch?
Well, I haven't watched it yet, but I've spoiled myself already because my Disney Plus got canceled and I haven't renewed it yet because I haven't been home. So.
Oh, well, that's not a bad reason. I mean, did you watch the WandaVisions and the Captain Falcon, all that stuff?
I watched WandaVision. It cut off in the middle of Winter Soldier, though, so I haven't finished that.
We're gonna catch you up on that stuff.
We'll catch you up. Yeah.
You're gonna be fine.
But
this is the first episode of Loki. I think you'll be okay.
Josh, do you remember
everything he's? Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Do you remember in WandaVision, like when they were talking about Wanda being a Nexus being?
Right.
that's one of the cool things that they were talking about, at least in the timeline stuff, about how like anytime you break the time of the sacred timeline, you become a nexus or a variant. And I found that also kind of fascinating because they call Wanda a nexus being, and Loki has created a nexus event. So it's like Wanda's gonna.
But he's collapsible. But Loki's collapsible. Loki's somebody who's like, oh, you're a second Loki. We can kill you.
Yeah,
but he's not a nexus
being. Prune that branch. Yeah,
we can just trim that branch, and that Loki can go away. They really could care less. Wanda has more power, though, and that's pretty huge. I think it's going to be fun. And as far as Bolt T wanting some predictions and spoilers, hell, man, I don't know. I'm starting to read shit about like King the Conqueror, who's definitely the villain in the third Ant-Man movie.
And also that casting. So
like
excited.
That coming in. Ultimately, Bolt T says, how does Loki defeat the 3 timekeepers when he has no powers and they are more powerful than Infinity Stones? I don't know that he's going to end up defeating the timekeepers. I think phase 4 of this Marvel universe is going to be the multiverse phase, and it's going to open up things to get real cosmic. We're looking at you, Reed Richards, and the Fantastic Four. That's going to happen. But this is a multiverse phase. Phase 4 is the fallout of the Avengers messing with the timey-wimey timeline, and they're messing with the multiverse. We're gonna be in the multiverse for a bit. You're gonna see old universe characters like the Eternals starting to play a part in it. We got the TVA adding some scope to just how meaningless the first 2-3 phases of the Marvel universe were when they're using the Infinity Stones as paperweights. This is gonna be the multiverse, and then maybe the third. I feel stupid predicting the Marvel stuff because they're always going to be so surprising and fun. But I think maybe when we get through this multiverse phase 4 of Marvel, we're going to have some Fantastic Four in place, and maybe phase 5 starts to see a little bit of X-Men going on. So yeah, they're taking their time with it. They're doing it right. This is just another this show, just more evidence that these architects know what they're doing. Really, really freaking cool.
Really helps you appreciate how so many different stories from so many different directors and writers are still able to weave in and out of each other. And now adding
the styles.
Like TV.
The styles are all completely different. You can't compare WandaVision to the style of Winter Soldier. You can't compare it to this Douglas Adams crazy style that we got here. This is all just a lot of fun ingredients getting thrown into some really awesome stuff every time. And heck, like I said, like you got your Black Widow tickets, right? Because I'm stoked for that too.
That has been the plan. That's the first thing we're supposed to see in the theater too. And I'm like,
is that why you stood me up?
No, I stood you up because I was at a birthday party in Santa Monica, and it was cold down there.
Okay. Well, we're in a heat wave now. Geekscape, I apologize. You probably hear our fans going, it's really hot in LA. Okay, let's call it. Geekscape, if you want any more than this, you can probably catch Katie and Josh on this week's Geekscape Games. They're going to break down the whole E3 enchilada. All right? That's really what you're going to do. So I'm going to post this on a Wednesday. I'm hoping, if you're a podcast listener, I'm hoping that y'all get the Geekscape Games on the Thursday and continue the breakdown of E3. But this is the flagship show. We talk movies, video games, comic books, all the good stuff here. And that's what we got. Josh, anything to add? Katie, anything to add for the Geekscapists before we say goodbye?
Just pick up Metopia. It's highlight of 2021 for the Switch, apparently.
I got back to LA and I was like, am I going to ever play Metopia again? I'm going to get on plane again and then I'll play Metopia some more. Matt Kelly says, great episode as always. I really appreciate that, Matt. I love Matt, and Matt runs the Geekscape Network, and I just got to say, like, I'm always in awe of, like, just the quality of shows that Matt's helping produce for us, from One Hit Thunder to Horror Movie Night to the return of Disneydos today for a fun special anniversary episode. Look it up on the Disneydos feed. They talk about Cruella, which you may or may not have seen in the theaters. Geekscapists, you got to get the official breakdown from the Disneydos experts. And, of course, to Xbox Game Passengers or Femme Regard, the female filmmaking podcast, and then we, of course, have Geekscape Games. I think that we are cooking with gas here on Geekscape, and y'all are always welcome, if you're listening to this, to throw us an idea. Maybe it's something fun that you think would be cool on one of our video platforms or audio platforms, or it's a short film. I really don't care. Let's just make cool content and have a lot of fun together. So thank you, Matt. The fact that you think this episode's fun and great, it means a lot to me because you're making some fun and great stuff for us here at Geekscape. I'm Jonathan at Geekscape.net. If you want to shoot us anything or you want to advertise with Geekscape, that's something that we're going to start doing here in a bit, is bring on ads. And Katie, you continue to be a peach. Josh, you continue to be my go-to resource for video game knowledge and amiibo jokes. And
Still can't believe you invest in those.
Yeah. El Chicho's going to have to make a comeback after this Metroid fiasco today.
Happening.
You really
It's
do.
happening.
You really do. You have to redeem yourself.
Me? That's not me. That's my cousin, El
Geekscape,
Chicho.
the redemption story.
Geekscape is, find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the socials. You'll find us, be a part of it. And see you next time. Peace.